This is day 28 of my 30-day journey across the wild Atlantic Way. So I'm just here at another discovery point, Comakishta, and looks like it's a really popular spot because even in the wet, miserable weather, there's still a flow of people continuously coming and taking photos. If this was a beautiful view, it would make it like 100 times better. I mean, if it was not raining and if it was a nice day, it would be a beautiful view. So yeah, definitely worth checking out if you're here on the Wild Atlantic Way. I'm just outside Tom Crean Brewery and we're going to meet up with his granddaughter to find out a little bit about the story of how it came to be and maybe a bit more about his story.
My name is Aileen Crean O'Brien and we're here in Tom Crean Brewery, Kenmare. We opened the brewery in November 2019 in honour of my grandfather, the famous Antarctic explorer. Tom was from Anascal, and when he retired after his 3 expeditions, 2 with Scott and 1 with Shackleton, he opened up a pub in Anascal. When he retired, it was a different political climate. Within a couple of months of retiring, he was pallbearer for his brother Con's funeral. So he didn't mention anything about being in the Royal Navy and being on the 3 expeditions to Antarctica. But he did open a pub and he called it South Pole Inn. So this is quite unusual in a little village in West Kerry. To date we have produced 11 craft beers. They have no additives, no chemicals, and they're vegan. And we were delighted last year we entered 4 in the Blasnahairn competition, and our 6 Magpie Stout won gold and our St. Bridget's Lager was awarded bronze. And our zero alcohol Last Man Standing was a finalist, even though there wasn't a specific category for low alcohol beers. So we were really happy with that. We opened the brewery to honour Tom Crean, as he was a publican himself, and as a child growing up at home, in the sitting room in our house, we had all his memorabilia, and I was intrigued by this grandfather who went to Antarctica not just once but 3 times. Why would you keep going back to such a cold place, survive the expeditions and go back again? But he did, and so in 2016, it was the centenary of his last expedition. I organised an expedition with my 2 sons and my husband, and we sailed 800 miles from the Falklands down to South Georgia, albeit in a nice dry boat, and we were safe, but just to get a sense of what he experienced. And I have to say it was absolutely amazing sailing into Great Ficken. We were very lucky with the weather. The sun was shining, the sky was blue, and the boat was on engine, and it was a 55-foot boat. And all you could hear, there was pancake ice, so all you could hear was the crackle of the ice breaking, and the silence was deafening. But it was just absolutely amazing. A very emotional expedition and trip for us, for all the family. When we crossed South Georgia, unfortunately I broke my leg on Crean Glacier. I think he was trying to tell me to stay at home and cop on to myself. But my 2 sons and my husband finished the expedition. And last year I had the honour of commissioning the new marine research vessel that's based in Galway, called the RV Tom Crean, and commissioned it with a bottle of our own expedition ale. We called it Expedition Ale after Tom Crean's 3 expedition and our family expedition. So that was a very, very proud moment for all the family. And inside in the mess on board the RV Tom Crean, they have a photograph. It's an unusual one. It's a young photograph of Tom, and of course he's smiling and laughing again in it, and superimposed in the back is one of the ships, I think the Discovery. And one of the staff looked at it and said, "No pressure." So, but yeah, we just want to keep his story alive. We often give talks in schools to the children. He was such an inspiring character, and he came from nothing. He came from a poor family. There was 10 in the family. So he had no future in Anascal, and there was a history in the village of people joining either the Royal Navy or the British Army and retiring with a pension. So this was an out for him. Where his house is in Gortcran, it's over a mile outside the village. You can see the sea, you can see Menard Castle, and that's where he enlisted. Back then the Royal Navy had the biggest naval fleet in the world, And so they were always enlisting, and so he walked down there with his buddy and they headed off to Cove, which was Queenstown, and they had to do a year's training on a ship, which was really, really tough, but all the Irish lads survived. In fact, on the Shackleton expedition, they had to do the trip 800 miles from Elephant Island to South Georgia, and on that boat you had 6 men. 3 of them were Irish. Shackleton was born in Athy. Tom Crean was from Onascal, West Kerry, and Timothy McCarthy was from Kinsale. And they had only 3 sightings of the sun. To this day, nobody has recreated that boat journey. It's considered the greatest feat of navigation ever. And again, they're the only ones to cross the island in 36 hours without a map, without a sleeping bag, without a tent. They had only a rope and a carpenter's aids, and yet they made it. When the children saw them coming in from Stromness, they ran away in fear because nobody had come from the other side of the island. And they went in, and the manager there didn't even recognise Shackleton. But they went back, these tough Norwegian whalers that lived there, went to the other side of the island to get the 3 men, McCarthy, McNeish and Vincent, and they insisted on bringing this boat back, this 22.5-foot boat, because they couldn't believe that they made that journey in one of the worst oceans in the world. And they brought it back, and in the evening when they had some grub and cleaned up, they shook their hands and they said, "These are men." After our expedition, our admiration went up, I don't know, a millionfold. They were amazing men. People come into the brewery, and we do brewery tours on a Saturday, and we do private tours as well. So half the brewery tour is about brewing, and our craft beers are all natural, no additives, no chemicals, and they're vegan. So it's a really good product. We wanted to produce a beer that would stand on its own, not just on the story of Tom Crean. So on those tours we talk about the brewing process and how we brew beer, the history of brewing in Ireland. And then I talk about Tom Crean, his expeditions, our family expedition in 2016. And we like to keep the story alive and with a level of authenticity. There's photographs in the brewery of my mum, Eileen, my Auntie Mary, who only died 5 years ago at 99.5. The family are indebted to Michael Smith for writing the book An Unsung Hero, and the kids' book The Iceman, which is on the school curriculum. So the kids come in to chat with us, and I have Tom Crean's chair downstairs, and they just love to sit in it and get their photograph and everything. So we do our best to keep Tom Crean's name and spirit alive appropriately. It's difficult sometimes because people start off with maybe with the best of intentions, but get carried away, and it doesn't turn out so well. But we try to protect Tom's name and make sure it's used appropriately. We're in the Tom Crean Brewery. We opened it in November 2019. As you can see, there's lots of photographs of my grandfather. Up here there's a photograph of my mum, Eileen, the small little girl, and my Auntie Mary, who's died about 5 years ago, and she was 99.5. My grandmother, she was known in Onascal as Nell the Pole. Because Tom was known as Tom the Pole. They called the pub the South Pole Inn. She was quite a matriarch. She lived with our family for 20 years and never spoke to my dad. This is their wedding photograph. That photograph with Tom and the pups is quite famous. It's from the Endurance expedition with Shackleton. It was taken by the photographer Hurley, who was from Australia. And that's Tom there with his pony. That's from the Scott expedition. So on Scott's expeditions were driven by science, and they brought motor vehicles which failed miserably, and they brought ponies, and the ponies were in an awful state. His was so bad it was called Bones, but him being an animal lover, he nursed it back. And so yeah, there's lots of more photographs, and this is where we brew the beer. So we've 3 500-litre tanks and 2 1,000-litre tanks. And then last year we got 2 2,000-litre tanks. So this is the kit here. Bill, my husband, brews the beer. To date we brewed 11 beers. And as I said earlier, our stout got gold in Blasnahairn last year. and our St. Bridget's Lager got the bronze. The reason that they have different names is for revenue, really, yeah, for excise. So it was either number them or name them. So the first 3 tanks were called after the 3 ships, Discovery, Terra Nova and Endurance. The other 2 tanks are Tom and Nell, my grandfather and my grandmother. And the 2 2,000 litre tanks are called the Ringarooma. That's the ship my grandfather was on in New Zealand when Scott moored and was down a man, and that was the start of Tom's Antarctic expeditions. He volunteered to go with Scott. The other one is the Clyde. That's the Royal Navy ship that rescued me when I had my accident in South Georgia in 2016, and they brought me out to the Falklands. This is one of Scott's expeditions, and you won't recognise anyone really with all the gear they've on. But this is Tom, and we know it's Tom because he was a very proud Irishman, and he stitched the harp into the flag there, the ensign flag. This is us heading off on our expedition from Stanley in the Falklands, and only a month ago we had Menson Bound. Menson Bound was headed the expedition to Antarctica to find the Endurance, and they found it March 12 months ago. And they found it 4 miles from where Worsley, the navigator, recorded sinking, and 3 kilometres down. So Menson has written a book about finding the Endurance, and it was absolutely pristine. It was amazing. We saw the footage on TV, and so it was lovely to meet him. He's a lovely man.
Okay, so I am just so grateful that I went there. Aileen is such a cool person, so passionate, and obviously is really, really passionate about what she's doing and has that Tom Crean spirit in her, obviously going on them expeditions. So if you ever are here in Kenmare, I would definitely recommend a trip to the Tom Crean Brewery. Radio.